back. Will Worsham joins us now for this week's Speaking Legal discussion. Thanks for coming on, Will. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
All right, we're ready for the question here. Our landlord refuses to make repairs to the house that we're renting. Is it okay to withhold rent until the problems are fixed?
What do you say?
No.
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 Got to pay the rent.
Got to pay the rent.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you do?
What do you do?
What do you do? You mean there's more?
Yeah.
Well, one, the issue is this. If the house is uninhabitable because of the repairs, then you have to move out. I mean, you just have to find somewhere else. And then the fact that the house is uninhabitable can give you a reason for breaching your lease so that you would be able to get out of the lease without being in breach of it.
Okay, what define uninhabitable?
Well, if you
the toilets don't work and they won't fix them.
Well, that it may not be.
See, that's iffy, right?
It is iffy. But you can deal with like flooding sometimes is an issue. If the roof leaks to the extent that bedrooms are uninhabitable because it floods so much, then that can be considered uninhabitable. But usually the thing is this. What we find most of the time is people will come to court because they've not been paying the rent because they think the landlord should fix something on the house. This is actually pretty common.
Okay.
And come to court, and that's their defense, and the judge or the landlord's attorney, either one, asks them, says, well, have you continued to live there? Yes. And the answer is, if you have continued to live there, then you have to pay the rent. So that's the medium length answer is, if you continue to live in the property, you have to pay the rent. And if you're unhappy with the way the landlord is performing their services as a landlord, it's like any other business. You simply cease to do business with them. Right. And you leave.
And I mean, if you're a fix-it kind of guy and you're halfway in, you can fix the situation if you can, maybe, and then the next month you don't pay and you get out. Is that right?
Well, yeah, hopefully you can give notice. There's some lease provisions there. Now, there is one small caveat to all this, which is in certain limited circumstances, Missouri law allows a tenant to withhold a portion of the rent in order to pay for repairs.
I was about to ask you, to what degree can you try to do it yourself?
Well,
you mentioned, you make a good point, Kelly. Can you do it yourself or?
You can do it yourself.
You can.
Now, whether or not you get to withhold that is subject to several different provisions, which is one, you have to have lived in the property for at least 6 months. You have to give the landlord written notice of the defect. That defect has to be in violation of city code. You have to give the landlord an opportunity to respond and fix it. And then if they still fail to do that within the time period set out, you can deduct up to $300 or half of the rent, whichever is greater, to pay for those repairs.
But you have to be in the house for 6 months.
You have to have lived there for 6 months before that provision.
But if there's an issue from the get-go,
then that's why you look at the house before you sign the lease.
So what if somebody doesn't give that 2-week or whatever notice, but their property, they've been saying, I need you to fix this, and they don't give it, they just move out. Now, is the property owner going to try to do something with that? Maybe,
maybe not. I mean, it depends. If you signed a 1-year lease, then you're obligated to pay for that 1-year lease period, absent some decision to the contrary. Now, most of the time, if you do move out prior to that, the landlord will come and seek rent many times, but if you've paid up to when you got out, it's almost not worth it to come after you for the remainder of that rental period, because a lot of judges simply won't give it to them because there's a provision under the law called the duty to mitigate damages. What that means is if I'm a landlord, I've got a 1-year lease, you're my tenant, you move out in 3 months, I can't just lock the door, pull the shades, and expect you to pay rent, because even though I have a contract from you that says that you will do that, I have a duty to go ahead and open the house up, advertise it for rent, see if I can get another tenant in there, because that mitigates my damages. My damages for your breach of lease are the lost rents. So if I can find a new tenant to make up those rents, then I'm not damaged. I can't simply rest on the damages and try to collect them from you. I have to try to get them mitigated. And most courts find, at least around here, course of dealing is that yeah, landlords can get a new tenant in pretty easy. It's a pretty hard thing for a residential landlord to show that they gave best efforts and couldn't mitigate their damages. So most people aren't. The problem is, however, you as the tenant are going to have a judgment on your record for breach of lease, and that's what you don't want for simply walking away. That hurts your credit for a long time to come.
Yeah, people need to know that.
Where do you take a grievance besides just going to court?
Well, the health department is one, either county or city health department. That's probably the best place to do that, especially if whatever's wrong with the property is going to rise to a code violation, and many things would. If it doesn't rise to the level of code violation, we're probably picking at nits here and maybe need to not deal with it. Nobody really has a right to have that perfect house. Houses don't stay that way. You know, if the paint's peeling, well, paint peels and some things like that. But if there's broken windows, major structural defects, things that make the house clearly unsafe or uninhabitable, that's obviously something that should be brought to the
So
attention
do
of
a
the
good
authorities.
walkthrough from the beginning. Know what you're getting into before you sign anything. Okay, if you have a legal question for Will, email him, wworsham@colorton.com. He'll answer your question on the show. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, be right back.
Many men and women are suffering